2 years is exactly how long I've owned the Apple Studio Display. I purchased it March 17th of 2022. It is March 17th of 2024, so exactly 2 years. I have 1 year remaining on my Apple Care warranty, and I have used this monitor extensively for those 2 years for coding, for video editing, for photo editing, and even gaming. There are things that I really like about this monitor, and there are things that I really don't like about this monitor. And today I'm going to cover all of them over the course of 2 years so that you can get a sense of whether or not this monitor is right for you in 2024. And to be honest, your money is probably better spent elsewhere. This video is not sponsored. I purchased the Apple Studio Display with my own money, and I produced this video with my own funding. So if you want to show your support and help me in continuing making these videos for your entertainment, drop a like and leave a subscribe. I purchased the base configuration for my Apple Studio Display, which set me back $1,600. This included the standard glass as well as the standard screen, which just has a pivot, nothing else. There's also other options available, such as the nano texture glass and a stand which will pivot and tilt and go up and down. That will set you back $2,300 even today in 2024. This monitor's clarity is honestly one of the best parts of the monitor. It's 5K 27 inches, which produces a pixel per inch of 218, which makes this amazing for viewing text. And actually coding is one of my favorite things to do on this monitor because that text is so clear. It is truly deserving of the Retina name. It honestly makes it a little difficult to go to a monitor outside the Apple Studio Display for coding because it is noticeably less clear. And to do that, it's hard to get out of the Apple ecosystem when we're talking Retina displays. They really have that market reeled in. The monitor also gets plenty bright. It gets up to 600 nits of brightness, so it is plenty viewable in the daylight. Having the standard glass, there is a bit of reflections, but I haven't noticed it being too distracting. There's no HDR though, so if you're wanting to consume media that has HDR content, you're gonna be stuck with standard dynamic range. And in addition to that, it's only 60 Hertz. There's no ProMotion here, which was a big disappointment even in 2022 when this monitor came out, because the MacBook line had the ProMotion with 120 Hertz. This monitor gets 60 Hertz, and it is noticeably slower. I played games on this monitor with a Windows laptop connected via Thunderbolt cable, and not only was the refresh rate very low, but the latency is just abysmal on this monitor, and it makes everything a blurry mess. It is really hard to game on this monitor with the refresh rate and that latency. Another weak point of this otherwise stunningly clear display is that it's IPS. IPS is such an old technology by now. When this monitor came out, they shifted the MacBook line to mini LED, and that just looked excellent. There was also OLEDs on the market at the time, which have infinite blacks. They look even better than mini LEDs. And then this monitor releases in 2022 with an IPS screen, and it was just a slap in the face. This monitor's IPS screen does it so dirty. However, this is probably the best IPS monitor that you can buy right now. A big drawback of IPS is it cannot get truly black. There is always a bit of gray with that backlight, and this is no exception. That backlight is noticeable, especially compared to an OLED like this AW3225QF from Alienware. The blacks on it are just pure black, and here they are next to each other, and you can really get a sense of how different those screens are. That's my laptop screen as well, which is also an IPS, and it's noticeable compared to the OLED. The black uniformity, however, on this IPS is absolutely amazing. The backlight is there, but it is consistent all across the panel, which is actually really, really hard to do, and I haven't seen that in any other IPS outside of this monitor. And to me, that really speaks to the build quality of this monitor. There is no argument that the Apple Studio Display is extremely well built. The material is these single blocks of aluminum. There is no flex. It is very durable. You knock on it, there is absolutely no flex at all, completely solid, and it is so thin, so flat, so well engineered, and it just looks awesome. The stand is super solid. The hinge inside the stand is just so smooth. You can effortlessly tilt this monitor and it feels like it's floating on air. It just feels perfectly balanced. They put so much R&D into the engineering design of this monitor and it paid off. It looks stunning. There's no panel gaps. The front glass is a single piece, and when you press the corners, it is just perfectly solid. Very, very well built. There's also a couple fans inside to dissipate heat through the entire chassis of the monitor. I don't love the stand for a couple reasons, one of which it just looks ugly as hell, I think. That's my opinion. I think it looks pretty ugly, and it just tilts. It doesn't pivot, it doesn't swivel, it doesn't height adjust, it just tilts, which really limits the versatility of this monitor. The AW3225QF has height adjust, it has tilt, it has pivot. However, it doesn't have rotation, but that's fine. It has more options than this, and it's $400 less. There's not many monitors that are made out of this quality of aluminum either. That Alienware monitor is all plastic. It is an absolute turtle killer. Plastic everywhere. Plastic on the back, and it creaks. You move the monitor, it creaks. Plastic on the stand, and to top it off, it's not solid plastic. It's pretty flexible, and it creaks a lot. Not very well built compared to this monitor, even though there's a $400 difference. I want to talk about the speakers on this monitor though, because probably my second favorite thing about the Apple Studio Display is its speakers. And when it came out, Apple advertised this new speaker system they had in the Apple Studio Display, and I think people were skeptical, myself included. And the moment I listened to this monitor, I was absolutely blown away. It was better than my M1 MacBook Pro 16-inch, which already had a revamped speaker system, which sounded awesome. It was much better than that, with bass being very punchy and everything being so clear. Honestly, took me by complete surprise. Here's how the Apple Studio Display sounds. And here's how the M1 MacBook Pro 16 sounds. And then here's how the Alienware OLED 3225QF sounds. The Alienware does not have speakers. The Apple Studio Display's I/O is a bit of a hot mess. On one hand, it's very clean, with a Thunderbolt port requiring just a single cable to run from the back of the monitor to your MacBook. Produces a very, very clean look. Couple that with 3 additional USB-C ports, you can plug in additional accessories like an external hard drive, a keyboard, or whatever you want, an audio interface, whatever you want. But that's where it ends. There's nothing else. So if you want to plug in an HDMI 2.1 device, you can't. You don't have an HDMI 2.1 port. And that port selection is very limiting. Couple that with the fact that this monitor cannot be JZ chained, that is a big disappointment for a monitor at a $1,600 price point starting. There's also some Appliness with the I/O, like the M1 MacBook Pro 16 doesn't have Thunderbolt ports, it has USB-C 4, and the monitor connects just fine. I tried connecting the USB-C to my laptop, which has a Ryzen CPU, and it didn't work. I connected it via USB-C, didn't work. But I connected it to my laptop that had a Thunderbolt port, and then it did work. Display, webcam, sound, everything absolutely worked fine. So that is a bit of a gotcha. Just be careful with that if you plan on using a Windows laptop with this monitor. And if you're using a desktop, well, you're gonna have to find another solution. And that brings me to the discussion of using Windows on this monitor. You can do it, yes. If you have a Thunderbolt port on your laptop, you can use it. You can use the webcam, you can use the sound, you can use the display. And it's a pretty great experience. You lose out on a couple things like Center Stage. Center Stage will not work. That is a Mac exclusive feature, but pretty much everything else you can take advantage of, including gaming. And it's a 5K resolution, so you're gonna need a pretty beefy graphics card. Here on my laptop, I'm using a 3080 Ti, which is probably not a great 4K or 5K graphics card, but here it is in Call of Duty. You can see my frames up there in the corner. They are under 60 frames per second, which makes for a pretty laggy and choppy experience, not the best. And then in Helldivers 2, you can see that I'm also getting under 60 frames per second, and the experience is about the same. So if you're gonna be using this with a Windows laptop, be sure it has a very beefy graphics card. And on both those games, I have DLSS set to balanced, so I'm not even running at the native 5K. I have 5K downsampled via DLSS. But I will say that it is great being able to game on this and hear the audio through those glorious speakers. And if you're wondering, yes, the Windows interface will support 5K. You can see that resolution there. And the max you can set it to is 60 Hertz. Interestingly enough, the Windows reports this monitor as an 8-bit monitor. I can't really say if this is 8-bit or 10-bit. I'm not sure. I don't think Apple really makes that information available. But if it's 8-bit for $1,600, wow, it's pretty disappointing. There are more color accurate monitors on the market today. For instance, the built-in panel on the M1 MacBook Pro 16-inch is more color accurate than the display. And then further that, with the Alienware OLED monitor, it has a greater color accuracy than the MacBook Pro has. However, that monitor, being OLED, doesn't get as bright as the MacBook Pro or the Apple Studio display, but if you're really into video editing and color work, then the Alienware OLED is superior to both the Apple Studio display and the MacBook Pro. So that's something to keep in mind. Like I mentioned before, this monitor has a built-in webcam, and Center Stage was a big selling point of this monitor back when it was released, and I've used Center Stage maybe twice. It's a total gimmick. I mean, it's cool the first time, like walking around the room and seeing the camera follow you, but it's a total gimmick. And the webcam quality is not that great. It's 1080p, and it doesn't look magical or anything. It just looks like a 1080p webcam. By now, this is my third or fourth video on this monitor, and I think I kind of convey the same message in all my videos, is like, this monitor has such great potential, but it's just not there. It's never been there, and the price has just been way too high. $1,600 is just not a great value. It wasn't in 2022, and it isn't in 2024, which is why I don't recommend you buy this monitor. There's plenty of good third generation QD OLEDs out right now that are far less money than the Apple Studio display. They're more color accurate, you get HDR, and it's OLED, so you get those pure blacks, which is what I'd recommend you put your money towards rather than this. It's a very cool monitor. It's a very Apple monitor. It's very well designed. The speakers are phenomenal, but I can't recommend you purchase this. Those are my final thoughts of the Apple Studio display. This will probably be my last video on it since I've made 3 or 4 of these videos now. I'm looking forward to whatever Apple's next display is. Let me know what you thought of the video in the comments below. If you liked the video, leave a like, and if you want to see more, hit that subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. I purchased the Apple Studio display with my own money, and I produced this video with my own funny.